Welcome to Founder Rising, the podcast for women founders in wellness coaching and consulting who are ready to build businesses that create freedom, impact, and income. I'm your host, Christine Huckala, business coach, former psychotherapist, and mentor to women scaling service-based businesses. Today, I'm joined by Natasha Golinsky, founder of Never Launch on a Friday. She helps female agency owners heal the trauma, keeping them stuck and reach their goals, and is based in Vancouver, Canada. Natasha, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Christine. Super excited.
I'm so stoked to have you. I'll just say right off the bat, we actually met like a week or two ago to record this, and you didn't have any power. So
There was a blackout in my neighborhood.
And I've also been following you on LinkedIn for a little while before that. So I have a bit of context and history, and I'm really excited to record this episode with you.
Yeah, me too.
So the very first thing I have to ask you is the name of your company, Never Launch on a Friday. Tell us all about it.
Oh my God. Well, I've run a web development agency for almost 11 years. And one of the things that I've learned in all that time is if you're pushing a website live, never do it on a Friday because something's always going to go wrong. There's always going to be some sort of drama, and it means everybody works
all weekend.
Everyone, yeah, exactly. And it's just a disaster. And so originally the coaching business was working with women who worked in web, and it was about and so we all know what that means, right? Like never launch on sense. Yeah, and it was a coaching program for women in the web world, kind of like me, and then it just sort of evolved that the brand now became working with agency owners outside of web, and it was kind of the idea of Never Launch on a Friday is anyone who's done it has serious PTSD. What happens? Oh my God, it's just so the idea was trying to communicate we all learn, we all make mistakes. We all fail. We all do things that are really not smart, but we learn, we pick up, we move forward, we get better, right?
And
it was kind of so whenever I tell people the name, people are like, "Oh my God, I know what you're talking about," and it just kind of creates this sense of resonance of the painful things that we do or we have happened, and it's and it didn't really start out to be that deep originally, but now the feedback I get is okay, yeah, it's about that idea of we learn, we move forward, we make better choices, and
it makes so much sense. From a branding perspective, I think it's just such a fabulous name because it immediately caught my attention. It made me curious, which is exactly what you want your name to do.
I know,
but I love the more profound meaning behind it, and also just the permission. It's so great. You had mentioned earlier that you spent decades being very good at being small.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I was raised by a bipolar parent. My dad had serious bipolar disorder. He didn't ever get treatment. I was one of 6 kids. I was the oldest of 6. My mom was very devout Catholic, very judgmental in a lot of different things. There was very strict ways she wanted me to live my life, and very strong rules and very strong punishment. If you didn't, I was never abused. To anybody listening to this, I never got abused by my parents, physically or anything like that. But I grew up in an environment where it was very I definitely had to toe the line. You know what I mean? And it was I had to there was a very specific way I had to live to not provoke either of my parents.
Yeah, well, and I just want to explicitly name, I feel almost a compulsion to, the potential trauma being raised in an environment like that. Yeah. It's not better or worse than someone in a physically abusive environment. That takes a massive toll on anyone.
It definitely does. And I find when you're in a very emotionally unstable situation where there's a lot of consequence with either parent, there is no safe parent. Yeah. You just grow up very dysregulated, right? You grow up very for me anyway, I grew up very people pleasing, very perfectionism, because I didn't want to trigger either parent, right? So you become this chameleon, and and from the time you're a little kid, you just know how to not make anybody mad, right? So that went into my marriage. And I was my ex-husband, we were together for 15 years, but the whole concept, in 15 years together, we never had a fight because I knew how to play the room. You know what I mean? I knew how to read
the weight of that, how much emotional toll and energy it takes to, and now I get that play small all the time because you can't make the wrong move. You can't step out.
Exactly. Like you are so afraid of making anybody angry. Like to me, I definitely learned after like years and years of therapy, like anger equals danger to me. Like, and there was a valid reason that I thought that, because it did equal danger. There was times that my dad
experience at the time.
Yeah, like there would be times my dad would just be like yelling at me and like banging on my door, and there'd be times that my mom wouldn't talk to me if she didn't like one of my choices, and so it like really was real that anger equals danger. So I couldn't grow my business because I could only take a certain number of clients that I could like control it all. Wow. And for years I would never publish content because I was so afraid of like what would somebody say, and it wasn't like
you can control the response.
Yeah, I couldn't control it. And so I was always like playing the cards to like control the table. Yeah. And so much, I put so much work into, and this is why I got into trauma work, because it was like, I couldn't show up. I always felt so much bigger on the inside, but I couldn't like, I remember there was like years ago, like I hired this woman to coach me in content creation. And she was like a pro, like she had helped other people I knew who'd gotten great results. And I remember we were doing like discovery, and I was just started crying, and I was just in the session, just crying and crying and crying. And it wasn't even anything big. She was asking me to like pick my content buckets or something. Yeah. And just the idea of like publishing content, I was like having panic attacks. And she finally gave me a refund. She's like, you can't do this. Like, I'm not even going to take your money. She gave me a full refund. Wow. And I was like, oh my God, because I'm the kind of person, like, I've run a business my entire career. I'm like I'm not shy, like, but I was so stuck in this place. And so when I finally like learned how to like manage my fear of someone being mad at me or someone disapproving,
I can imagine how huge that was for you.
Yeah. And now I can publish content on whatever I want, whenever I want. But it was 40 plus years. Like I'm 45 now, and it was probably 43 years before I had like, not even the courage. It wasn't the courage. I always had the courage. Like I could have, but I was just like, there was this invisible cage, you know, of like.
I was just going to say, like the analogy or the image that I'm getting as you speak is this image of you like being in this cage. And I'm so appreciative that you're willing to share this story and this experience with our listeners, because I spend so much of my own time speaking with women's service providers, not who have just experienced trauma. Many of us have. Sometimes it's like what we call the small t trauma of just beliefs and ideologies that have been instilled into us from a young age that keep us caged, you know, in various ways, shapes, and forms. And I think it's so important to name, you know, what you're talking about here is, of course, our childhood experiences, for better or for worse, shape who we become personally. And when we become business owners, we don't separate from ourselves. We are still the same person running that business. So sometimes when we get stuck in our business, when we feel overwhelmed, when we don't know how to make a decision, we don't know what the next way is to go, when we, you know, feel stressed or all the things, sometimes it's our personal stuff that's actually getting in the way as a business owner. For you, what were some of those like experiences or turning points as a business owner that you had to like untangle or confront as your business grew?
So confronting as my business grew. Yeah, well, there was this time, the biggest one probably was in 2024, in September of 2024, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And I had no genetic history. I had never smoked. I don't drink. You know, I was very athletic. Like it was one of these very things that you think isn't going to happen to you, quote unquote, you know? Yeah. And I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. I was scheduled for a bilateral mastectomy reconstruction, like 6 weeks out. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
Like I was freaking out because I'm a 1-income household. It's just me. I have 3 teenage kids. I'd run my business, like my agency business, for about 10 years. And it was just me running it. Like I had a team.
Everything depends on you.
Yeah, there was no one. I didn't have a number 2. And so I was like, I need somebody. Like I can't, like, this was my only income stream. Like I can't just not shut the business down. I don't have a husband bringing in a paycheck. Kids need food on the table. Like I needed to keep it moving. I had a team who's their payroll and like,
so anyway, like what do you do when everything depends on you and suddenly you can't keep showing up?
We'll talk about trauma, right? Like all your triggers are like coming up. And so I like knew this woman. She was a client of mine. She was a really good friend of mine. I knew she was an excellent project manager. She had no tech background, but I'm like, I need you in. And we did this like when I hired her, I had no idea how I was going to pay her, because this was not like a small hire. She was like a $60,000 a year hire. Like, it was not cheap. Like, it was not. And I was just like, okay, how am I going to pay myself, pay my bills, pay my team, and not work and pay her? I was like having
your children and take care of yourself and all of the things
like,
you were
how am I
juggling.
going to do this? Because I was the biz dev, like I was the business, right? Like, so everything depended on me. And I'm like, okay, if I'm not working, and she really doesn't know what's going on yet. She's like, the idea was for her to be a Band-Aid. So I remember I went to the bank. I got a loan to cover at least 6 months of payroll, because I'm like, okay, I had money saved, but I'm like, if I don't know, like my oncologist was telling me, like, you're not going to be able to work. And so I was really thinking like worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, so I went to the bank, I got this loan. I'm like, at least I'm like, look, let me buy time until I'm through treatment. And then I can like hopefully come back and maybe I don't know. Maybe it's going to be burned down. I have no idea what's going to happen, right?
You're preparing completely for the unknown.
Oh my God. So she came in and it was so funny because we did the onboarding. I was like either high on drugs or like on my ass from chemo. And we did like our training, like with me, like always like drugged out. And so I always admire her. I'm like, wow, like the fact that you got through that, like it's like a miracle. Like,
a good hire.
Like, I don't know. I don't even remember what I told you most of the time, but yeah. And then it was this crazy experience, and she came through it. And then when I came back to work in May, like full time, like I was working part-time, like as I felt good enough to work during treatment. But when I came back to work full time in May, after I finished all my chemo and everything like that, she was like, hey, I don't need you. Like, I got this. And
oh
I was
my
like,
goodness.
oh my God. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was out of the agency, which allowed me to like hang up my shingle for something I've been doing for a long time behind the scenes of like doing the trauma, the root cause work with other founders like me who were just like get stuck in things.
That moment when she said like I've got it, I don't need you to come back. Was that like, were you mad? Were you scared? Were you relieved? Were you excited? Like how did that feel in that moment?
It's such an interesting question. And people ask me that all the time. And I'm like, on one hand, it was kind of like two responses. On one hand, I felt like, oh my God, like relief and freedom and excitement and possibilities of what can I do now? I've been doing the same thing for like 10 years. Like, oh my God, like now I've got like the horizon is open. But on the other hand, I felt really, really sad and really, really lonely, because like this was my team. Like I'd worked with the same people, like more or less the same team for a decade. And these were like brilliant people that I loved. And now they were her team.
Right.
You know, and my client.
Arguably, it was still your business. Like you could have said, no, you're out, I'm coming back. Like, what was it that made you like lean into this and go with it rather than taking the reins of the business back?
Well, that's a great question. Like, I just knew I didn't want to do it anymore. Like, I knew I didn't want to be the project manager ops person anymore. Like, I knew that this was, and she did a way better job than me too. Like,
that's amazing.
She was such a better project manager than me. Like, no, she came in and she like cleaned it up and worked on processes and cleaned up all the contracts. And she like did all the stuff that as the founder, when you're in biz dev and project management and running, you know, and you got kids, and like, I could never like dig in to all like the details the way that she could, because she was just running ops, right? And so she was doing such a better job than me. I had been offboarded, quote unquote, like all the team loved her, the clients knew her. I'm like, for me to come back in, it doesn't make sense. Like it just doesn't make sense for me to come back and like mix it all up again. And I was actually, but it was weird. I felt like this humongous sense of abandonment, and I felt like a sense of like, they don't need me anymore. And it was really like, I felt a lot of grief actually, like if I'm honest about it. Like I felt grief that like, oh my God, like just felt lonely, because I'm like, who do I talk to now? Before it was always like my team, like blah, 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 shoot the shit, right? And now it's like, I got nobody, they're not talking to me anymore, they're talking to her. On one hand, it was like, it was an exit, right? Because I'm like, okay, I technically, quote unquote, have exited. I hadn't sold, but like, it didn't need me to run anymore. You know, she needed me for like biz dev and like stuff like that. But the ops, the day to day, like, I don't know what's going on. Like we have meetings twice a week, and I'm like, I don't know. She does the money, she does the ops, she does the team, she does like all the things. And I'm like, on one hand, it's a huge victory, you know, but on the other hand, it was like grief, I would say, is more.
Before we keep going, I want to say something. If you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I'm in that season right now, I'd love to talk to you. FoundHer Rising isn't about polished success stories. It's about real growth. The hiring decisions, the revenue plateaus, the identity shifts that happen when your business starts stretching you. If you're building something meaningful in wellness, coaching, or consulting, and you're willing to have an honest conversation about what scaling actually looks like, apply to be a guest. The link's in the show notes. I'd love to meet you. Okay, back to the episode. You've experienced a journey that, I don't imagine anyone will willingly step into your shoes. Like, I can only imagine how overwhelming and horrendous and awful that was. And what I hear you talking about is like all of the benefits that came from the other side, in large part because of the decisions you made about how you were going to move through that journey. And, what I want to hold up is this, on the one hand, what resulted and what you're experiencing now is something that almost every female founder that I speak to wants, right? We start our own business kind of like scrappy, being the only service provider. And a lot of women that I speak with, have aspirations of one day hiring, of having a team, of having some systems and process in place, of not having to feel the obligation of wearing all the hats and being the one who everybody else is responsible to and depends on. And the choices that you made to get to that place were because you really didn't have another choice. I mean, you had a lot of choices, but you made the best choice. It was not
intentional, let's say.
Right, you made the best choice under the circumstances. And it's, from where I sit, it sounds like you expedited that whole process. And what really, really strikes me is that sometimes female founders tell themselves this story of like one day, right? Like when I check all these boxes, when I do X, Y, and Z, when the business is here and looks like this, when all these things, when, and we never get there. Yet you did something under pressure way before you were ready, right? And in probably less than ideal circumstances.
Oh, it's definitely not ideal.
It turned out incredibly. And like what that does for me is it's kind of like mindset shattering, like belief shattering of like, oh, like maybe I'm the one making up all these stories about what it takes to get there, and that I could actually learn from this, and maybe the listeners could learn from this. And what I'm curious to hear from your perspective is I imagine you learned a lot right through that in all ways, shapes, and forms, but specifically with respect to hiring and building a business that you could step back from. What did you learn, and what advice from this, like, do you want to pass along to other female founders who are kicking the can down the road of hiring and outsourcing?
Well, like in a past life, I was a recruiter in a previous business. And so it's funny because in my agency life, I run a web development agency, but I've never built a website. I was not a programmer, a developer. I know. I was a management consultant, and I had a client who wanted help with a website. And so I got a guy from Upwork, some random freelancer. I had no idea what was going on. Hired him. He did the project. We ended up doing another project, and then another project. And then next thing you know, I have a web designer, a web developer, and I'm running this team. And I had never...
Where you were never responsible for the service delivery.
I've never done deliverables ever. Like, I've never done it. So, which is hilarious to so many people because they're like, what?
But so smart.
How do you run a tech team and you have no idea what they do? I'm like, I have no idea what anyone on my team does, but like, I know my part, I know my lane, right? I've always run a team because like as a single parent, I was like, my window to work was between 9 to 2 while my kids were at school. So I did not have the luxury of working all the time. So my goal was to to pay myself a 6-figure income working 9 to 2. And I did that. And I've paid myself a 6-figure income like year over year over year. And the only way I can do that is because I have other people working. So I got really good at team building. Like I've gotten really good. Like I had really good retention. Like I had nobody leave the team for a decade. So like I fired a lot of people, but anybody who I'd never had anybody quit. And so my retention was good. I know how to build good teams. Like virtual contractor teams were 100% remote team. I'm really good at that piece. Like, so I tell people, like, I'm not really, obviously I can't build a website to save my life, but like, I know the right people on the bus, right? And yeah, like I look at it like whether you're a parent or not, for me, I've always, even before cancer, like one of the things that was always really important to me was like wellness, like so fitness and health and time off and time with I'd been through a divorce, like so I knew how important it was to have time with my partner and like not be in work mode all the time and all these things, like these lessons we learn as we go, right? And so I just really the number one thing for me was my kids, right? Like, I'm like, I never wanted my kids to feel like they had to like take a second seat to me being on a call or checking my messages or checking Slack while I was with them playing a board game, you know, like I never wanted to be, I wanted to be able to turn it off when they came home. And, and it works because sometimes I remember years ago, my son, like he's 18 now, but my son was like, do you work? Because he'd never seen me work. Like it would be like, I would drop off and pick up and I would do all the work in between. But he was like, what do you do exactly? Like,
so I have to ask Natasha, what do you say, you know, to the woman founder who's listening, who wants all of this? This is her exact vision, right? Not the cancer, not the horrible parts, but the successful
not the cancer part.
Not the cancer part. Let's be clear about that. But the successful parts of the kind of business that you're describing, you know, that you can pay yourself a 6-figure income, you can work Monday to Friday, 9 to 2, you know, to the extent that your kids are like, do you even work? What do you do? Right? It sounds pretty amazing. And what I'm hearing from you is that the key to it all was hiring the right people, probably hiring before you were ready. And what do you say to that female founder who wants the thing, you know, and here's the key and says, but I can't, or I'm scared. I don't have the money. I don't know how I'm going to afford that hire. I don't know who I can trust. What if I hire somebody and they mess up my company? You know, because these are all the fears that I hear all the time. What do you say to that female founder?
Building teams is a skill. Like this is the thing. I have this cohort running right now, and it's a skill where people think, oh, there's some sort of magic like recipe, and I'm like, no, it's a process, it's a system, it's a skill set. So if you're bad at it right now, like, or if you're scared, it's probably because you don't know what to do and you don't know how to do it and you don't know how to do it profitably. And so I look at it like it's not some sort of magic, elusive thing. It's a skill set. Like if you're an interior designer, pardon me?
Like don't just go hire anyone.
No. There's a reason. There's a way to do it. Like one of the things that I've done is I've created this framework about how I did it and how I've done it. And it's because it's like, I always looked at it like this is one thing that I see online all the time. There's sort of two schools of thought, right? When it comes to building a service business. One is do it yourself. Like, don't worry about your team. You can build like a $250,000 business doing it just with you. Don't worry about building anybody. To me, I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's a really cool way to do it, right? Like there's a lot of thought leaders who like go down that road. To me, that is so unappealing. I don't want to be like, I don't want my business dependent on me.
Yeah, it's one way to do it, and it's not right or wrong, but a lot of women don't want
there's different ways to do it. Yeah. So for me, like if I'd followed that school of thought and gotten cancer, I'd be dead. Like not literally dead, but like my business would be dead. And so
you would have lost your income.
I would have lost my business. Yeah. And so it's like, so I have always looked at it like, to me this is just me personally, like, I was always thinking about like on my deathbed, like where if I had to fail at something, my definition of success is like a healthy connection, like a really strong connection with my kids. Like I have 3 kids, they're teenagers now. My oldest is 19 and I have a really strong connection to my kids. And I'm like, that to me was always non-negotiable. Like the way I grew up, like I was not willing to like be the parent that like jeopardizes my connection. So to me, always like my whole entire life is set up for that outcome. So the idea to me of like the team building, the freedom, the moving it away, the leverage of knowing how to do that was always my play. So I think it just depends to a service as a coach, as a service provider, like both ways are totally viable. But which one do you want? Like, I wanted the freedom if I had to drive to a field trip that I could, or if my son had a volleyball game to not be on my phone. You know, like I wanted that, like, okay, like yesterday I went to a female founder event all day. I didn't have to, like, I told my ops manager, I'm like, hey, I'm out, like, call me if you need me. But I didn't check my messages.
I love that perspective that you don't have to hire, but if you don't want your business to depend on you, then it's a skill set that you can learn.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's a totally learnable skill set. There's no like someone who builds teams and someone who doesn't. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not. It's just something you don't know how to do yet. Like
like anything like running a business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I always tell people, I'm like, look, if you're, let's say, an interior designer or something, you learned how to do that. Okay, you did that. Now let's just learn how to build a team. Like, okay, it's a different skill, and that's something that I do a lot of teaching on and coaching on, because it's like that's the freedom. Like if I didn't have a team, like going through a divorce, going through cancer, going through I have a special needs daughter who needed a lot of time at the hospital at a certain point. And like, you know, I couldn't have done any of that without stressing about my clients. Like if I didn't have someone else running it, right, helping me. So I don't know. Depends on the lifestyle you want, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I come back to that time and time again, is it's not about right or wrong. It's about what do you want? Because every choice we make will lead somewhere. And we're the only one who has to live with the consequences of that. And we all want something different. So I'm a lot more interested in understanding what people want to build and what are the required steps to get there. You know,
exactly.
So,
like both ways work. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of building, I want to talk about your pivot. So you had this moment right, where your life shifted course, many moments where your life shifted course, but the one I want to talk about is when your project manager said, we're good, we don't need you to come back. And you still own the business, but you stepped away from it. And now you've built something new. Tell us what you've built, Natasha.
Well, one of the things, like obviously growing up, how I grew up was I have spent a crazy amount of money on therapy, courses, energy healers, somatic experiencing, yoga, yoga teacher certification. Like, spent I probably read my first self-help book when I was like 15. So it's been like a 30-year journey of like healing and unlearning, and just so I could function as in my life. You know, like I came out, like I didn't really realize it till later, but like growing up how I grew up, it does a lot of damage, like to your psyche. And it is very, like you said, little T, big T. Maybe I wasn't physically abused or like raped or anything like that, like it's a big T trauma, but like it took me a long time to admit that it was traumatic. Like it was definitely traumatic, like growing up like that. And I always thought like, you know, like type A alpha females were like, you know, nothing can hurt me. I'm invincible. Like, you know, like, and we have this idea like, we negate what happened because we feel like we're bigger than that. And so it took me a long time to like admit like, no, this was not okay. And so I started working on like looking at my own blocks and looking at my own places where I was stuck. Like in the example of the content, like I could not for the life of me create content. And I'm the kind of person who always has something to say, like no matter what. And I knew I would be one of those people who could create really great content. I just couldn't do it. And so as I like learned how to heal those wounds inside of me that allowed me to say something and show up bigger and stop worrying about making somebody mad, people from my peer group, because all my friends, colleagues are service providers too. And they started asking me like, whoa, you're so badass. You're so bold, like boundaries with my clients. Like I started being able to really push back with my clients, and people would like reach out to me. They're like, how did you do that? Or like, they'd call me like crying and being like, oh my God. And I'd like talk them off the ledge. Hey, let's do some breathing, like things that I'd learned for me. And so once I was kind of out of agency life, like my day to day, and not having to do 2FA code validations and changing contracts. Like we all like fucked up our life, right? I'm like, how much of our day is actually spent doing 2FA validation? I don't know. Probably half.
Good amount. Good
like
amount.
half a day. You're just like, please be online to validate my login. Oh my God. Anyway, this is like the nightmare for all agency owners. But it's just like, so then I started like, I'm like, wait a second, you know what? Like I couldn't do it before because I didn't have the time. Like I had a career, I had kids, and I had cancer. I'm like, there was no margin to add something else. Like I could not, but I was like, wait a second, you know what? I know, like, I'm going to finally hang up a shingle for this because like my philosophy as a founder, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I've never had a job. I've always run my own business since the time I was like a kid, is like, we talked about before, like whether none of us really know that it's there, but we all live in this like invisible cage that of things that were probably our nervous systems, our beliefs, our trauma, like that we learned when we were little. And it's not something we consciously chose, right? Like I never thought, oh, I don't create content because I'm afraid of my dad getting mad at me. Like it took me 40 years to make that connection, right? That's not why. Yeah. And so like I really started studying like root cause, like, okay, why? Like even this morning, like in one of my communities with other agency owners, like there was a woman who published, she's like, oh my gosh, like do you guys ever experience like panic attacks? Like as a founder, like you start freaking out and like emotionally you're like on this roller coaster. And a lot of the people in the group are like, hey, I take the supplement, hey, about this. And so I go for a walk and I do and all these like symptom management. But my question is like, why the panic
of that? Yeah.
Like, where's the panic coming from? Like, why? Like maybe when you were a kid, if you made a mistake, someone hit you. You know, like, I don't know the story. Like, I don't know. But you know, this is like, where is this panic attack coming from?
Right. As opposed to publishing content or whether it's hiring, and not to say like we all have trauma just because we have a growing edge in our business, but sometimes that can be the case. And sometimes it's really worth exploring if that thing is really causing a significant turmoil inside or persists to be a problem, you know, longer than you might expect it to be.
Yeah, but like, why, right? Like, why the panic attack? Like, why? And it's just like, what about this? Like, I know for me, I used to have a lot of panic attacks too, because if it was like, if I make a mistake, there is going to be serious problems. There's going to be serious consequences. And so like, I was terrified of making mistakes. So maybe she does too. Right. And that was something that I learned as a kid. And anyway, so like, to me, like I'm obsessed with this whole like root cause, because female founders, we are badass and we are brilliant and we are shiny and bright. And it's like, but so many of us, like I know for me and a lot of my colleagues, like I've spent 6 figures or more on personal development, like courses, like so much, but like I have not even in so many ways come close to achieving my goals. And I know that's the same for so many founders. And it's like, there's things that we don't know. Like we're trying to like fix all the stuff we're conscious of, but what about what we're not conscious of? Right? Like there's so many things.
It can be business skills, and like we just don't know how to grow a business, and we can learn that. Yet in the process of that, you know, many times we bump up against our own internal stuff, whether it's big T or little T trauma.
Exactly. So that's where Never Launch on a Friday came out. Was like, I'm like, no, like I'm hanging up a shingle to be able to help. And it's kind of a weird, kind of like a taboo subject of like talking about trauma. Cause I don't know, even though I read this book and it was, I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus, but it was all about like, okay, like as a founder managing stress, and it was all about again symptom management. And I'm like, like, I don't know, like to me, I always see it further. Like I always see it deeper, like, cause I guess I've done so many decades with myself, like 6 figures managing symptoms. And I'm like, and never once have I taken a course that's like, okay, creating content number 1, you know, module 1, hey, where are your fears around creating content? You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
like symptom management can help. But then for some of us, there's this desire to, as you said, like heal it at the root cause and go deeper so that we don't have to keep managing the symptoms.
Exactly. No, for sure. Exactly. And I find like that's where I sort of have found myself coming in, is where somebody's trying to achieve a goal and they're trying, and then year after year, and they're putting money into it and they're trying, and it's not getting them anywhere. And it's like, okay, that's when you know there's something else.
So would you say that? Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, like, would you say that that's your vision for the future, is helping female founders, you know, who want to be helped, like recognize like their own internal blocks, big T or little T trauma, so that they can be more successful?
100%. Yeah, that's like, because cancer like makes you think, right? And it's like you start thinking more about legacy and stuff, because the type of cancer that I have, you know, they're like high chance of recurrence, like all this stuff. And I can live as healthy as I want, but you never know. None of us know, right? Like what we have. And so I thought about it a lot. Like, what do I want to leave behind? And leaving behind a world of more brilliant, shiny female founders. And like, because I really do believe women running businesses changes things, like families, communities, like, and I know I'm totally biased, but I really do believe like women killing it, like everybody wins. And so I look at that and I'm like, okay, so to me, it's like, if there's women who are trying and there's like really going after it, like people like your clients, people who hire you, you know, who are like, yes, I'm ready to go to the next level. And I know you have a background in mental health as well, but it's like, so that fly hitting the window, like, bah, 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 bah.
We got to get curious when that's happening.
Yeah. And it's just like, I think you find when you hit that, when you kind of like, quote unquote, like bottom out and you're like, I don't know what else to do. Like I've tried everything, like nothing's working. And it's like, okay, now that's the time to like, okay, let's look a little deeper. Right. And, cause I just know myself as well. Like I've gone to so many Tony Robbins events, and I've taken courses, and I've hired I was paying a coach $2,000 a month to work with me. And I'm like, you know, and it was always working on the external stuff. Like, let's fix your pricing and let's look at this. But there was what really moved the needle was when I actually looked at myself and be like, okay, where's my trauma around money and earning and showing up and saying, like, you know, and it was once I started healing on the inside, the stories that I was telling myself without even knowing it, that's really when I felt the freedom to like show up very differently. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's maybe very woo-woo, I don't know, but
I personally don't think so. Like, I feel like we need 3 more episodes just to unpack everything I want to talk about. I personally find this subject so exciting and so important. And although our focuses as professionals and service providers are a little bit different, one of the things that has always been and will continue to be very important to me is like creating a space where founders can learn to build businesses and also feel safe to name those things and bring awareness to those things as they come up. So we certainly have that in common. I can imagine that there are listeners here who, you know, like I get excited talking about this topic because to me it holds the potential, you know, for freedom, freedom from those cages that kept us. I'm imagining, you know, some folks listening having a similar experience and kind of along with us, like they've been there and they get it and can resonate. I'm also imagining listeners like who are maybe feeling scared or overwhelmed, like some folks listening thinking like, oh my gosh, like, is this me? Like this could be their first time hearing something like this. And you know, I want to name firstly that like whatever your reaction is, hearing this conversation is normal, and give yourself grace. And for folks that are listening who want to learn more, who are maybe at that stage or will be at that stage in a few months or a year or two of like, I'm ready to take a look at this. You know, Natasha's your girl. And where can people find you and learn more about your story and how you work and how to work with you?
It's a great question. I would just say head over to LinkedIn. That's my home base. Yeah, come find me on LinkedIn. It'll be in the show notes, I'm sure. And yeah, I post content like 7 days a week. Amazing. I wish I could post 20 times a week. Yeah. So much to say. And yeah, I would just send me connection requests. Tell me that you saw me on the FoundHer Rising podcast, and I would love to meet you. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Natasha. I look forward to continuing this conversation with you. Thank you, listener, for tuning in to FoundHer Rising. If today's episode resonated with you, follow the show, share it with another founder, and leave a quick review. It helps more women find these conversations. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or learn more at hucklehorizons.com. Until next time, keep rising and keep building the business that gives you freedom to live, lead, and create on your terms.